Hello Giants fans, welcome to Giants Baseball 101. I'm Gabe Vaughn, your host. The Giants beat the Dodgers 7-3 today. 3 games the Dodgers could not touch the Giants. The Giants sweep them, and now, whether you can believe it or not, the Giants lead the Dodgers by 1/2 game in the standings. It may be a slim lead, but it's a lead nonetheless. The Giants are, right now, at this very moment, ahead of the Dodgers, occupying second place, a few games behind the Diamondbacks. On Friday night, I made the point that statistically, the Giants have a very realistic chance of winning the division. And now, it's just looking more, after this sweep, it's just looking a lot more like it might become a reality. I have more news for tonight, but first, I want to quickly go over the game. Logan Webb pitched another one of his shout-out outings. 7 innings, 2 runs. He's just a bombshell for the Giants, just like he was last year and the year before. Whether he'll be selected to the All-Star game or not, we still have to wait and see, but that's really irrelevant to the main point, which is he's winning games for the Giants, and he's one of their top guys. Mike Yastrzemski, Lamont Wade Jr., and Blake Sabol all had RBI singles. Luis Matos had a double, and he just to say the least, he's definitely developing as a prospect, and I think he's just going to be one of those guys who surprises by turning out for the team just really quickly. I mean, he's looking that way now with some of the things that he's showing, but he had an RBI double today, so as long as we keep seeing things from him, obviously that's just a great thing. But the point here is that the Giants, they're pitching, they're preventing at least the key runs when they need to. That was evident Friday night in that extra inning game. Twice the Dodgers were threatening to walk it off. So those high leverage situations, Giants pitchers stepping up, preventing the key runs, that was definitely evident there. And then, I mean, today with Webb's great start, they held down the Dodgers, and they're getting the bat on the ball. Yesterday it was 15 runs, and Friday and today it was 7 runs. They're getting the bat on the ball. They're getting hits. They're hitting home runs. They're definitely, I think, sequencing their hits really well, hitting with runners on base, just scoring runs, and it led them to a sweep over the Dodgers today. And now I want to continue the discussion about what does the Giants' recent success really mean. Well, and I'm going to introduce you to a couple of concepts here. Right now, the Giants, just great success, and this week it was 2 straight sweeps, winning all 6 games. They sweep the Cardinals in 3 games, then they go and sweep their division rivals. It was just a great week. That's having a visible impact, and it's having an invisible impact. The visible impact is the one that's really easy to explain because it's mathematical. You see it in the standings. Every game they win is a game closer to... It's certainly just giving them a boost in the wild card race. And what we're seeing is that they've overtaken the Dodgers. There could be more than that, just statistically. Look at the numbers. Look at nothing else. They're climbing in the ranks. That's the visible impact. But there's an invisible impact too. And I think that Farhans Thoughts, president of baseball operations, is becoming aware of some things. General managers on baseball teams, if you could really sum up their job, they have to, in baseball, just like anywhere else, you're working with limited resources. They have to be used efficiently, which means the guy in charge on every team has to know whether the team's able to contend, whether they have to rebuild, what the short-term and long-term goals have to be, how to prepare for them, and ultimately with the goals in mind, how they're going to squeeze out the most. And sometimes they make really smart decisions along those lines, and sometimes they make really dumb ones. So what's Farhans thinking for the Giants right now? We're not asking here what was he thinking a month ago. And it probably wouldn't be very good. If we asked the question a month ago, you probably don't want to know, at least if you're thinking about this year for the Giants. You're too impatient to wait, or you think what if it didn't work out anyway and they're just going to keep playing like this? This isn't the question, it's what's he thinking right now. The Giants just had a 2-sweep, 6-win week. Well, I want to tell you about this little appearance he had on this talk show on the station 95.7 The Game. And this, it was, I believe it was this little clip of the show that was put on YouTube where Farhan was coming on to just make some statements about the team. You know what he essentially said? He said, I don't understand why we would sell at the trade deadline. This was before the win today. It didn't just happen tonight. So every win Giants get just going on is just going to keep reinforcing that. That's what Farhans said. I don't understand why the Giants would sell at the trade deadline. Does that sound like waking up to the possibility of a championship season in 2023 or what? It's just... You hear that? It's one thing, and it's good just from a statistical perspective. The Giants' record, to say that it's a winning record now is an understatement. They're 39, I believe, and 32. Dodgers are 39 and 33. They're a half game ahead of the Dodgers. But I've made this point before. There's an impact to the team's performance in the first half of the season is going to have on what the front office thinks it's going to be likely to be in the second half of the season. Giants are becoming less likely now to sell at the trade deadline. So maybe in another very real way, this is the start of the big victory for the Giants. Now, I want to fairly and honestly present both sides here. Is it enough to just say you're not going to sell? Is that enough? Well, actually, saying we're not going to sell is not exactly the same thing as saying we're going to be buyers. Last year, let's just ask this, did the Giants sell? Well, only if you could consider trading Garen Ruff for J.D. Davis as selling, and I certainly don't think that way. By the way, I will just say that J.D. Davis was... I'm just going to have to admit this. He was a major success of the 2022 trade deadline. And when I speak of that as a failure, what I'm saying is that they didn't do enough to give them any shot at the playoffs in 2022. Maybe it's just time to kind of forget about that, put that behind us. J.D. Davis was a success at the trade deadline. So in terms of, it's just, that's a fact. But did the Giants sell at the 2022 trade deadline? There could be reasons why they didn't trade Carlos Rodon. Maybe they just... It might have been an issue with the offers they were getting for him. Maybe they weren't just... They just weren't good enough or whatever. But the Giants didn't sell. It probably would have been better to do something like that shows a clear direction toward one way or another than to just do nothing. So, just saying... I'm not going to sell at the trade deadline, or at least it's not looking that way. It isn't enough by itself, but it shows that the front office is probably close to being on the right track. By the way, it would be really bad. I'm just going to say the Giants would just be in a really bad way if they happen to have the same kind of losing streak just right before this year's trade deadline as they did last year. I mean, we seriously have to hope that they can prevent a thing like that. And I think, I have no reason to think that's going to happen again. I just hope that they can maintain something near this week's level of intensity going forward into the near future. So it's just a step in the right direction. What they really have to be doing, and I kind of talked about this last night, is looking for top-level talent on the free agent market. But right now, just the fact they're deciding, or at least they're not going to call it quits this season, it's definitely a step in the right direction. And I think that the Giants have they've taken some things through trial and error. That's a fact. I think they've learned as things have progressed. And hopefully by now they're going to realize that, obviously the other danger is that they're going to think, we're hot enough, we're intense enough, we don't need any reinforcements. I honestly think, and as much as they might be wanting to save their prospects for the future, I think that's kind of a dangerous way of thinking. You gotta, in the very playoffs themselves, it's sometimes the teams who get the best deal out of the trade deadline that have the edge, among other things. It's that wouldn't be a right way of thinking if they were just gonna, contending teams have to see what they can do at the trade deadline. But what we're seeing is that Farhans Thoughts is just, his mind is flipping from not contending in 2023 to contending this year. And it's a process. It's definitely going to be a process. We still got over a month until the trade deadline. So this is a process, but I think it's begun, and it's begun to go in the right direction for the Giants. And this sweep over the Dodgers, I just don't know what could look better. So I think that's all for today. And yeah, yesterday I was just making the point about the trade deadline, how they have to look for top level talent, and hopefully they've realized it. And just like that with the free agent market, there's going to be competition with other teams. And I also made the point that how they do in the draft, it might kind of affect how they're going to feel about what they can do at the trade deadline, which is why amateur scouting, and that's probably one of the hardest things to really know the quality of, it can have even if you'd say it's indirect, it can have a very real effect on a team's performance, not only in the future, but in any current season. And that I certainly expect that to be the case for the Giants in 2023. Thank you for watching. This has been Giants Baseball 101. Please subscribe if you haven't. Also, please leave your questions and comments. You know where to do it. I'll see you next time on Giants Baseball 101.